going to make a request. I'm going to ask that you listen. Not so much to what I'm going to say, but rather to what your bodies are going to, how your bodies are going to respond, or what thoughts go through your head as I'm about to flash to the next slide. The next slide is going to be a question that comes to a place where, at least in Singapore society, and from what I understand about youth work that I do, it's a question that seems to resonate a lot with youth. And perhaps it could resonate a lot with this particular audience here. It's a scary question. At the end of the day, at the heart of every single youth and every young person that I've ever worked with, the deepest desire really is to come to a place where they can contribute. So they come to a place in society and say, what is my worth? And what is it that I can do to begin to make some sort of difference? The interesting thing about this generation is that there is a level of idealism that I have never seen before. Because when I grew up, I certainly didn't have the kind of, I don't think, community that we have today. Perhaps because of the internet, perhaps because of how we really are seeing a lot more problems in the world today. Youth are beginning to respond to this as a call. Not something which basically the adults have told them to come up and do, but rather something which they are saying, I don't want to inherit this. It's not happening just in Singapore, but it's happening, I think, in communities all across the world. But the question that I see with them is that they ask, well, what is my worth? I want to do this, but what can I possibly do to begin to contribute? It was interesting over here because there were two particular young ladies that I met this year. I asked them for permission to mention their name. One was Vanessa and one was Joan. And when I worked with them, it was amazing for me because Vanessa exhibited such a high degree of empathy, and one which I haven't seen for many years as I began to teach. And when she began to work with me over here, and it was thing itself that she was there and she was writing and she was doing her work, but what I was seeing over here was that she really cared for what she was writing. And she had an empathy and a sharpness for reading people that I've never seen. And I told her herself, and I said, Vanessa, you have such an empathy for people, and I can't wait until you grow up and you begin to really, engage with the community, with your work. And she said this. I think this is one of the saddest things that I've heard this year. She said, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to measure me according to my level of empathy. You see, a lot of us come from this particular context over here where, and I say this carefully, that we do live in an assessment-driven society. I think many kids grow up in that particular environment over here. And we want to come to a place where we want to broaden that particular assessment. But for the longest time in finding solutions for this, we haven't managed to shift away from academic assessment. And girls like Vanessa and girls like Joan, in terms of how much talent they have with people, come to a place over here where they grow up feeling that they're not worth anything. I come from a very similar experience, and I guess my history has come to a place where I wasn't always academically successful. I was broadly a C and D student, where my sister itself was largely a straight A student, all the way. And what was happening over there was that sometime by the age of like 22 or so, when I first began to join teaching, this is the first time I ever got an A. It was weird for me because my body and my emotions had gotten very used to being a C and D student. It had gotten very used to just understanding maybe there's nothing much you can begin to offer. And what was happening over here was that when I started to get those A's, it was hard for me to accept that. Even right now, there's a silent conversation in the back of my head, which I'm trying to push away, and it's telling me over here, what on earth are you doing here? What on earth are you doing here in front of these people and telling them about this thing? And it's weird because I guess it's a habit that built. It's an important revelation that we have to hit. Because as we begin to build youth as capital, as parts of people that can somehow contribute to this particular society, we come to a place over here where we do build the economic capital. But what we also want to begin to see over here is these human beings and their level of development in their emotional capital and their impact on social capital. The thing about this over here is that when I begin to see students today, they constantly say, I would love to be trained emotionally. I would love to come to a place over here where I can inspire, where I can move, where I can begin to really do the things I do. And they would say particular words and say, but I don't dare, I fear. There's a sense of inevitability I have, right? I don't believe I am powerful enough. And you realize over here that these particular things, right, whether it's about apathy or inevitability or some idea of fear, these are emotional things. At the end of the day itself, right, if a student is going to come to a place, or a young person is going to come to a place where they really want to contribute, right, people like Sam, for example, you can understand itself. There's a level of emotional competency there, right, that goes beyond basically her speaking skills. There is a courage to stand here and speak. Could I perhaps just one volunteer just come work with me for a while? It's interesting, because we had a span of about 15 seconds when I asked for a volunteer. And what I saw over here was I saw 2 hands and a 3rd hand come up. Okay. Let's try this. Do me a favor as an audience and just help me raise your right hand. They're working. And if you take a look at this, our bodies are fine. The skill base is there. Economically, this works. The main difference between these 2 people and the rest of the audience over here is that they have a level of emotional capital that allows them to begin to say, me. The problem with this over here, if I take this as a metaphor analogy for a much more broader idea of what this world needs right now, is that there are certain problems over here that are urgent. I don't have to go through basically the kind of problems that we're going to face, right, in the coming maybe 2 decades to 3 decades. But what we do know over here is that we do need people with strong emotional capital to say, me, I am the one that's going to do this. I can begin to volunteer. And even though there's a very heavy risk, because this chair was deliberately put to create that risk. You see, if I asked for a volunteer, anybody would have said, okay, sure, that's me. Put a chair here, put me in the limelight, put me as a leader by which to somehow create some sort of change. That's tougher. That's something that's a lot more challenging. I had the privilege of teaching the gifted education program for a short period in time in my career. And one of the main things they taught us at that point in time was that if there is going to be a gifted child, the mark of giftedness is contribution. If Beethoven had a symphony in his head, right, it would be in his head. If Liechtenstein came to his place where he had a picture in his head, it would be in his head. But the idea of giftedness came to the place over here where somewhere within their capacity, they had that talent, but they also exhibited it in some level of courage. The thing about giftedness and why I work with youth a lot is it comes to this place over here where we are seeing a lot of kids with amazing talent, right, to be able to contribute, but they don't come and do so because they are not trained emotionally. And we pay a price. I say this gently, and I don't say this with any means to somehow insult or to put across maybe a bad message. But the idea itself is that kids today are growing up inheriting apathy. A lot of them are growing up inheriting a world where adults say, you're only a single person. You can't possibly make a difference. In my whole career right now, I've worked with almost 15,000 youth. As no random statistic, I have about 80 to 90% of them who believe they can't do anything or make a difference. It's not that they're not talented, they just don't see anything else. 10 years ago, we started a series of social enterprises. The aim of these particular enterprises was to create a sustainable way by which we could bring some sort of change. I didn't want to pay a price anymore. And the fact of the matter itself is that these particular schools in which we set up, or restaurants, or places itself where we begin to publish different materials, all came to a place where we tried to actually begin to build emotional capital, social capital, as well as economic capital within kids. School of Thought currently comes to a place over here where we have almost 95% students who are getting either an A or a B grade, which means over here that as far as the economic capital is concerned, their needs are met. But what's more amazing for me is that these people come out and they graduate from the program and they come from a place itself where they're responsible and they want to contribute. I'm going to show you a short video of some of the kids, and this is by no means any propaganda, but things in which they have volunteered to come to begin to share with you what they might have learned.
It was a very strange experience because there was no books, there was no notes. I remember the first lesson was more or less like about ourselves, about what we like to do, what interests us and stuff like that. And I remember in my head I was thinking like, what is this got to do with GP? I hear about GP tuition and I'm not getting any like the conventional kind of tuition.
Previously I was taught to just answer questions, like answer essay questions. But in School of Thought, we are taught to understand the basic principles that drive how things work, in this world.
It's not about grades, and it's not about how well I did or how good my English is, but it's just learning about the world. Yeah, exactly, that's the word, learning about the world. A lot of global issues they are not so foreign anymore, so there is a sense of ownership and there's a sense of connection with the various issues that we read in the newspaper daily. I feel that there is a need for me to act and react in a certain way. Yeah, and I do have the power to act and react. Yeah. From School of Thought, I actually learned that whatever it is that you advocate for, you can actually make a difference. It just depends on how creative you want to be and how passionate you are in wanting to achieve what you think you couldn't do, but actually you can.
I wish I had the capacity, or the time to show you every single one of those kids that contributed to that video. What's amazing for me itself is that there was a whole line of kids over there, and they all had something different to say. Something that uniquely came from them, that they said that they want to somehow make a difference. Some of these kids right now, they are volunteering for Doctors Without Borders. They are pursuing medical degrees. They're coming out and starting their own community projects. Some of them started their own social enterprises. And I think the good thing about this over here is that when I began this work, I realized that we're not alone in this. Over the span of 10 years that we've done, government agencies have come over, other corporations have come over, and people have come over and said, okay, can we partner in this particular work, right, to somehow multiply this particular effect. One of the most encouraging things I saw was an email that came in from the Public Service Commission, where they said that some of the top scholars in which they have given scholarships to, 2 of them were places that they traditionally wouldn't have given. But these kids were speaking with such responsibility and such ownership for the problems in the world that they said these are the kind of people we want to give scholarships to. I think there's a possibility for us to come to a place where we can find strong academic, economic solutions for kids, but at the same time itself, build the kind of social capital and work in which they have. I don't think it's a dichotomy to say itself that either we have one or the other. At the end of the day itself, they can be merged. But the research needs to be done itself to come to a place where we can make this possible for students. At the heart of it, I believe that I am a teacher. If I am an entrepreneur in any one particular way, I set up some particular companies to begin to make this work possible, it's because I see entrepreneurship as the only way by which we create institutions that don't currently exist. And if we do design these places over here, and my greatest wish is this, one personal agenda that I have over here is to make sure that every student in Singapore does not need to go for tuition. I think it's a stupid idea itself to go all the way to school and then spend another 4 hours at the end of the evening to go for tuition. What kind of life is that? At the end of the day itself, I would like to come to a place over here where tuition, I believe, is the center. If the public service comes to a place where it teaches ways in which they can find that the work is meaningful, that the academic pursuit itself is something which is worthwhile, then they wouldn't be going for tuition. I would like to do myself out of a job. At the end of the day itself, if I don't have to teach tuition, then yes, we would come to a place where we evolve into different kind of entities. But this is the encouraging thing. People like this, people that I work with, and this current generation of youth are starting to think the same way. They are looking for real solutions because they don't want to inherit a world, I guess, what we adults may have created. Thank you.